Hi, my name is Dzirasa. I'm the CEO of Fearless.
Hi, I'm Dzirasa. I am a pediatrician and the health commissioner for Baltimore City.
And welcome to our Fireside chat. Today, our chat is going to be moderated by Latoya, the amazing Latoya. She'll be in the background, so you might hear a voice out there asking some questions, but she will be interviewing us today, and we're excited for you guys to join us.
Thanks, Delali. And again, thank you everybody for joining this fireside chat with Delali Dzirasa, CEO of Fearless, and Dr. D. Now let's get started. Delali, for people who don't know, what is Fearless?
All right, so Fearless, we are a digital services firm, and we're really in the tech for good space. Our mission is to build software with the soul, and our vision is to create a world where good software powers things that matter, and that means all of the innovation, all of the ingenuity that's often happening in the commercial space is not the same technology that typically powers things like education, things like healthcare, things like social justice, all of these really meaty issues. And so we really exist to fit in that gap and bring technology into that world.
Sounds like an exciting company. What are you proud about, Fearless?
I'm proud about many things. The first one is just working with such an amazing group of empathetic people that really care about what it is that we do and really care about driving and making impact. This is not just about technology for us. It's about they're a human on the other end. There's a person whose life we're making a little easier. Maybe it's giving them the ability to register and become a citizen a little bit easier. Possibly it's helping someone to get health insurance that they don't have health insurance today, or accelerating all of these social changes that have to happen. And so I'm proud to work with amazing people that want to change the world.
Dr. D, you used to be one of those amazing people at Fearless. Not saying that you still aren't amazing.
She's still pretty great.
You're still pretty amazing. But talk to us about, becoming the first African-American health commissioner in the city, at the city of Baltimore.
Wow, that's a big question. So you're right. I did have the opportunity to be a part of the amazing Fearless team. And I think that experience, along with a lot of my other experiences as a pediatrician who practiced in Baltimore City, as someone who also trained in Baltimore City, really helped to shape and develop me for the role as health commissioner here in Baltimore City. I think having that background, having practiced in the city and served in our school-based health centers here in Baltimore City, but also having the tech background, right? So understanding the importance of data and how we can use data to drive our decisions around public health, I think that was really solidified during my time at Fearless.
Working with your spouse at Fearless, how was that?
You want to go first?
I will let you go first, actually.
It was amazing. She was the best ever. No problems, no issues whatsoever. No, it was honestly a really cool learning experience. And so for us, there was no separation. We're at work all day, we're at home all day together. And so having to interact in this separation typically between home life and business life wasn't necessarily there. And so early on, we had to figure out how to work together in the office. So as an employer, right, I might often kind of give tasks to employee to get some stuff done, and then wife would then task the husband with that same task. And so we had to learn how to work together. And early on, we came to the deal and the compromise that I got to be the boss at work and she was the boss at home. So it seemed like it worked pretty well.
Yeah. So I let him go first, so I could then share.
She wanted to tell you I was lying.
What actually happened. No, in all seriousness, it was great. I think we had a lot of fun. I think working with your spouse, because ideally this is a person that you trust inherently. I think made some elements of the job a lot easier, right? Because I think your spouse kind of understands your strengths and your weaknesses. I think like no one else does, and can certainly help to play and support those strengths. I don't know that I so much retasked him as I was asking for that additional support as a new employee, but tomato.
Yeah, I'll add one more thing to that pretty quickly. She's great. I mean, her work ethic is amazing. We weren't big enough to contain all of what she could do and all of who she was, obviously, in her role today at the health department. But when she was starting and thinking about consulting and trying to find other ways in which she can make impact here within Baltimore, I was pretty clear on, we can't afford you. We don't have the budget. We're small. We were just getting started. And she was able to go find her own deal, walked in the door with her own contract, literally brought in a multi-million-dollar contract in her first week. And so it's easy to work with somebody like that. But she really was a rock star from day one.
So you two have developed this cadence, and you're building such a great company. Why Baltimore? You said, Dr. D, that you did your training here, but Baltimore is a very unique place. What's your why?
Good question. So you touched on it. We're both Maryland natives, right? And we both actually grew up a little bit closer to D.C. And so I think growing up, it felt like Baltimore was worlds away. We ended up at UMBC, which is right outside of Baltimore City, and so got a little bit closer during those undergrad years. And I think that was probably my first exposure to some of Baltimore, but still oftentimes went home to D.C. In college. When I came back to Maryland after medical school, I did train in Baltimore City, and I do think that began to shape my desire to really leave an impact on the city. Right, so even in my training days at Hopkins as a pediatric resident, being able to do home visits, right, understanding, I think my population, at that level was so critical, I think, to forming just this desire to meet people where they are. And I think that just grew. I would eventually practice in Baltimore City at a federally qualified health center. I would eventually work at a school-based health center at one of our city high schools. Again, just more exposure to patients, to our residents here in the city, and I think that I think solidified my commitment to the city and wanting to give back.
Yeah, I think for me, we moved to Baltimore as a bit of an experiment. I'd never lived in the city before, and so we figured we'd come do a 1 or 2 year stint before moving back out to the suburbs, and really just fell in love with the authenticity of the city of Baltimore. What you see is what you get here. And really love that. And it's a place where if you want to make impact, you just roll up your sleeves and you get to work. Baltimore is a place that, depending on the zip code that you're in, can mean as much of a 20-year difference in life expectancy, which is ridiculous, right? And so one person, 20 years, I mean, it's just remarkable. And all of those disparities didn't happen by accident. This was architected, this was constructed. You think about redlining, you think about all these policies that happen, and so there's so much intention to create the disparities that exist here, and so there needs to be as much, if not more, intention to creating correcting those disparities. And so Baltimore very easily became a place where we felt like we can put our roots, dig in, and say, let's make change. There's change to be made here. The soil is fertile, and people need it.
Dolali, often you speak about removing barriers, right, and amplifying and uplifting others. How is Fearless doing that?
Yeah, so in Fearless, we do that through a number of ways. One, we try to, where possible, promote in all our opportunities, promote within. There's lots of ways in which we are trying to nurture and to grow our talent internal to the organization. We've had some success in our digital services and government technology space overall. And so anything that we know, we want to share and want to help other people to make their road much easier than our road was. And so we've created an incubator called Hutch. And so the intent of Hutch is to grow additional digital services companies. And so we can bring in founders from day one through our 2-year curriculum, get them to revenue within their first year and help them to scale. We've physically created facilities to support them. We've also supported in initiatives called Boost. It's a partnership with the Downtown Partnership of Baltimore, which stands for Black Owned and Operated Storefront Tenancy. And their hope is really, how can we look at the vacancy problem in some of these commercial buildings, and also with lack of opportunities for some of these Black-owned businesses, and build cohorts around getting them in vacants with amazing businesses and helping them to scale and to grow. And so for us, it's about empowering, it's about sharing our knowledge, sharing all the things that we know, all the mistakes that we've made along the way, and our resources, and not being scared to also cut checks where needed to help these businesses thrive and flourish.
All right, the theme of this conference is Tech Meets Culture. So let's talk about Fearless Sports and Fearless Doers. You guys got on some fly gear. Let's talk about it.
It is. So Fearless Sports is a new spinoff from Fearless Solutions, which is a technology company, and it's all about social impact. So anything that you see related to the brand Fearless is all about social impact. And so typically you might think of an apparel or streetwear brand or fitness brand that typically aligns with athletes and entertainers. And these are people that are top of their game, and there's nothing wrong with that. We celebrate them for their achievements. But there are a lot of people that are also at the top of their game. You think about Dr. Corbett, you think about, the good doctor right here. Literally, as you think about, the Moderna vaccine and saving lives, and it could be teachers, it could be other scientists, it could be activists, it could be all sorts of people, and we want to highlight them and raise their visibility. And so Fearless Sports, we back the doers. We're saying, look at these ordinary people doing all sorts of extraordinary and amazing things, and how do we align with them and encourage and inspire other people to do the same? And so though you may see the apparel, it really is the message that underlines the apparel itself. This shirt today that we are modeling is out today in our store, but it really speaks to that, yes, Black Lives Matter, and there's been debate, I'm not sure why, across the country and across the world, but Black lives do so much more than that. We build, we achieve, we create, we inspire, so many other things that we bring to society, and we wanted to pay homage to that through this special BLM collection shirt.
Just let's move over. With the Black Lives Matter and the movement, Dr. D, this question I'll ask of you. How has the last year dealing with the pandemic and all of the racial and social disparities really made it harder or easier for you to build soul into what you do?
Yeah, I think I can speak both personally and professionally, right? So on the professional side of things, I think it definitely made the work all the more important, right? So we are the longest continuously running health department in the country. I am the first African American female health commissioner for the health department here in Baltimore City, and our work is focused on addressing health disparities, right? And so when we saw the disparities in COVID death data, subsequently play out in COVID testing rates as well as vaccination rates, it became ever more critical to allocate our resources to address those disparities. Again, work that we were already doing, but I think the disparities we saw helped to highlight and elevate the importance of always having an equitable approach in the work and the services that we're providing. So I think professionally, it gave us that platform. We were able to share the data around disparities very publicly because I believe that sharing that publicly is what helps drive action. I think personally, as a mom of Black sons, as the child of a Black father, as the wife of a Black man, it was hard, right? There were days that, especially I think following George Floyd, where it was, you almost feel paralyzed, right? You almost feel like I'm doing all of these things to try to make a difference, and this is still how people in the world view me and view my family. And that's hard, right? It's hard to keep going when that's the case. I will say I was encouraged by many members on my team, of all sorts of races and backgrounds, that again, this is why we do the work we do. We have to keep fighting the fight.
Let me change that question up for you a little bit. You're running a tech company, right? It's a tech company where it's typically not that diverse. And this happens and you're running a company and it's COVID. Let's talk about the fearless culture and how you use those culture and values to really bring the company together.
No, that's a great question. At Fearless, when we think about our culture, it's typically in the lens of four things. Instead of our secret sauce, we call it our purple sauce. And it's really around four things. Number one, create belonging. And that really is this idea that you shouldn't have to go to work and put on a mask and have the work version of me and what's politically correct in the office, and there's a home version of you and the version around your friends and families and people in the neighborhood. All those things, they should be the same person. We welcome and we want all of that person. It doesn't matter if you look like, sound like, big hair, little hair, no hair, like me. It doesn't matter. But bring all of that to the table. And encourage others to do the same, those experiences. Second is open dialogue, and that just means we're going to have conversations. It doesn't mean that we're going to always agree. When the George Floyd murders came up and all the racial conversations, we leaned into those conversations. Didn't make that we knew the answer, how to even have them, but we knew that we needed to have them and to encourage that dialogue within the company. And so all the things you aren't supposed to talk about at work, we talk about at work because it's an important part of getting to know one another. And bringing our voice to the table. Number three, it's take initiative. And so we are responsible to create the outcomes in which we want to see. And so those are for our customers, They might be internally within our culture, or they may be for our community. And so how do we do that? And ultimately, we want to make impact, right? We're not here to make show. We're not here to play games. We are here to really shift the needle and support the people that we talk about we want to serve. And so for us, that's the crux of our culture. And I think in the lens of a lot of these racial conversations, belonging is such a big part. If someone feels like they don't belong in their skin, or can't have a conversation, or can't be real, or can't show up as them, you can't go any further than that, right? It has to be addressed, and you have to create spaces for people to feel comfortable if you want to be real about doing some of this DEI work.
That's a lot. The two of you do a lot. You do a lot personally, professionally, building companies, really keeping the city, making the city more healthy. How do you balance it all? Work, family, how do you balance it? And is there such a thing?
You saw that look we gave each other? I don't know. And I'm the wrong person to ask. I was having a hard time balancing. So my solution was I was just going to hire my wife, and then we get to work together all the time. And that's changed. But I think we support each other. I think we offer each other a great deal of grace, right? If we're at home and there's a pandemic and she gets a call from the mayor, she's got to take the call, right? And being able to give her the space to be able to operate in her element, because she's keeping all of us safe. And so we care so deeply about the outcome, and we try to support each other in the work. And so I don't know if it's this turn off work, turn on personal. They tend to blend, but we are supportive of each other in our endeavors.
Yeah, I think it was definitely, it waxes and wanes, right? Like in the beginning, it was particularly challenging, I think when the pandemic first hit. But I think one of the things that I also think about, right? So this February, we will have been married 15 years. And we've known each other probably, I think, for more than 20, right? And so over that course, right, there's always going to be kind of this waxing and waning and these highs and lows. And I think ideally, as Delali said, you show the other person grace. I think you aim to be intentional about the time that you do have together. We have a 4-year-old, and so that he also requires a lot of attention. And so I think it is that intentionality, and I think trying to find that balance where you can.
There are a lot of entrepreneurs and even those folks who are new to tech attending this conference. What do they do to grow themselves? Let's talk about the importance of mentors.
Mentors are huge. I'll say 2 things. It is not a mentor's responsibility to drive the course and direction of your business, right, or your life in general. It is your responsibility to seek them out, and your responsibility to ask for advice, and then take all of that advice from multiple mentors and chart your course. They're not living your life, right? They're not driving your path. You're blazing that for yourself. But it's important to get perspective, and that's what mentors are able to give you that have been there. They've traveled their own journey. They've traveled their own road. But it's an important part of that. The other piece of advice I would say is make sure that you're really, really, really understanding your why it is you want to do what you want to do. There are so many ups and so many downs in this entrepreneurial journey, and if it's not real, and you don't have the fortitude to be able to persevere because that why is so strong, then you got to figure out something else. You got to pivot, go try something else, but figure that why out first before you proceed.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add is having different mentors for different things, right? And so recognizing that, you may have a mentor that's really great at, career next steps advice. You may have a mentor that's better at kind of the day-to-day, here's what I'm struggling with. And so I think, determining different mentors for different needs at different periods throughout your career, but would certainly highlight what Delali said, that mentors are extremely important, and it's a relationship that you're responsible to cultivate. Ideally there's people who are looking to pour into you, but I always encourage students that come to me, if you're interested, ask someone. The worst they can say is no, right? But you should certainly ask if there's someone that you are interested in having mentor you.
Thank you. So what do you say about people who are leery about coming to work for Fearless in Baltimore, or building a company, or just living here?
Yeah, I'd say bring your talents to South. No, it is a place that really pioneered so many things, right? So you think about whether it be the national anthem, whether it be redlining, there's so many things that Baltimore was an early pioneer, health department, right? Was such an early pioneer. But this is a place where we're a city of firsts. And so this is a space where we're really trying to figure out what it looks like to build a company with soul. What does it look like? And this isn't just corporate responsibility. This is an ethos of how we live and how we interact. And so I would say it depends. If you're trying to go somewhere where you can be in a place where you're bringing all of your gifts and talents to the table, whether it be technically, whether it be administratively, it doesn't really matter. If you want to be at a place where you're solving problems that help people, that are trying to transform the way our services and our public services and government services are delivered for people in a way that work for them, that are equitable, and you want to be at a place where you can do your best work, then Fearless is the place to come. If that's not you, then this may not be the place for you. But if you are trying to change the world, this is where you want to be, and this is where you want to make the investment.
Dr. D, we have some folks who were just at the Fearless booth and visiting. They're trying to go from that health tech to from health to tech. What do you recommend for them?
Good question. Just try it. And I know that seems like super simple advice, but I actually was working as a medical director of quality in school-based health before I came to Fearless. In my previous role, in that medical director role, I was at a federally qualified health center, and so there were many opportunities to learn because it was what we call an FQHC, and so there were lots of areas in need of support. And so I was definitely that person who kind of always volunteered. If there was a committee looking for, someone to do quality work or someone to do performance improvement or someone to help with standard operating procedures, I would volunteer. I would raise my hand because I always saw it as an opportunity to learn. And I think even when I came to Fearless, right, coming over as kind of that healthcare subject matter expert, but then delving into business development and delving into areas that were new to me, certainly with guidance, but I would say just try it. Again, if you're in healthcare, right, you can always go back to healthcare. There will always be a need for healthcare providers. So just give it a shot.
Final two questions, and Dr. D, I'll start with you. What pushes you to keep going, and what do you say to those who are overwhelmed by existing systems or needs?
Good question. I think maybe a few overarching things that push me to keep going. One of the things I think about a lot are folks who came before me, right? And the sacrifices they made so that I would have and continue to have this opportunity. And I think about that certainly kind of generally as in, African Americans who sacrificed, who endured the civil rights movement, but even on a personal level. I had a grandmother who wanted to go to nursing school. She didn't. Because of the time, and she lived in the segregated South. She would go on to be a principal and a teacher for a number of years, but part of this was her dream, right? And so who am I when it's also my dream and I have this opportunity not to do everything I can to pursue it and do it at the best of my ability? I think my kids also push me, right? Like I remember, especially early on, just struggling with, we talked about work-life balance, but also thinking that I want my child to see his parents work hard, right? I want him to have that same sense of work ethic, as well as that same sense of it's my responsibility if I'm gifted an opportunity to really give back and pour into people around me, right? That's the type of person the type of people I want our kids to grow up and be. And lastly, I think it's certainly just the community that I serve, right? This is a job of service, at the end of the day. And so it brings me joy to see, that some of the work that the health department is leading had this positive impact, literally on neighbors, right? Literally in the community that I live in. So I think that's what really drives me.
All right, and Delali, for you, what's next for Fearless?
What's next for Fearless? I think we're thinking a lot about our brand and this brand around impact, this brand about bringing soul. So we're going to continue to scale, right? We're going to continue to scale from a tech perspective. We're starting to have conversations of what does it look like to have different Fearless campuses potentially in other cities. We've got a small satellite office in Montgomery, Alabama today, and we're considering what it looks like in other cities. I think there'll be other businesses that spin up, Fearless Sports being one of them, apparel, again, driving that impact. But there'll be other verticals. But ultimately, what will connect whatever it is that we do will be this impact message, and that our hope is that this world will be a little bit better than it was before we get there, right? And it's not blind hope, it's not blind optimism, but we're going to put in the work, and we're going to put forth the effort, because the people in which we serve are the ones that we're working for ultimately at the end of the day, and those are the people we want to impact. And similar to my wife, it's our responsibility. We both have had plenty of people that have poured into us, that have mentored us, and who are we now to say no, we're not going to help and we're not going to give back? And so we'll continue to grow that way. Hutch, our incubator, will continue to grow. We'll continue to scale that and supporting more businesses as we grow, as our platform and as our voice continues to grow. We will use that to leverage and support and uplift other people in hopes that they can get much further than we ever could, and that they can go and grow other people behind them.
Thank you. This has been such an awesome fireside chat. I always enjoy speaking with the both of you. So, again, thank you again. And Delali, I'll let you sort of take it from here.
All right, so thank you so much. We really appreciate everyone joining our fireside chat. Hopefully you had an engaging time, an engaging conversation. I believe we're moving over to Q&A shortly, so we will see you there. I'll let you say your goodbyes before we go to Q&A.
Awesome. No, great to be here. Glad that I could be a part of this, and look forward to seeing you guys at Q&A. All right.
Isn't she the bomb? She's great.
Please join us in the expo at the Fearless booth, where Delali and Dr. D will go live for additional Q&A. So we get a little bit more of their time. So please do come over and ask your questions. Tell us again, who's Fearless?
So Fearless, we are a digital services firm, primarily in really the tech for good space. Our mission: build software with the soul, vision, create a world where good software powers things that matter. And that means all of the innovation, all the amazing things that typically are happening in the commercial space, we really bring that into areas that really need and lack the investment. It might be healthcare, it may be social justice issues, it may be education, you name it. That's where we tend to apply our energies to make the world a little bit better.
All right. And Dr. D, let's reintroduce people to you as well.
Sure. My name is Dzirasa. I am a pediatrician, and I'm the first African-American female health commissioner for Baltimore City.
Thank you. Let's keep it easy. Let's talk about those clothes. Fearless Sports, what is it, and what is the Fearless Doers? Become Fearless. What's that about?
Yeah. So Fearless Sports was a spinoff from the technology company. It's its own brand, but it really is this space around apparel, right? So whether it be streetwear, whether it be fitness apparel, we're taking a little bit of a different approach. So instead of really making our brand around athletes, entertainers, they're around other social impact leaders. It could be community activists, it might be organizers, it may be teachers, it may be scientists, it may be business people. But really, how do we highlight people that are in the community, driving impact, making change, and really align ourselves with them? And so we're really selling hope and inspiration. Clothes are the conduit. Now it's going to look good, it's going to feel good, it's going to be fresh, all of those things. But the message is really what we're selling. And as a part of that, we have launched BecomeFearless.com that is really telling the stories of 5 amazing individuals from Baltimore. And our hope as we expand this part of the business would be for each city across the country, we're picking impact heroes called our Fearless 5 in each city, and really telling their stories and pushing out information, highlighting the amazing work that they're doing across the board.
Thank you. Delali, there's a little bit of chatter about the Fearless playbooks. Talk about the playbooks.
Yeah, so the playbooks were really designed to share what it is that we know and how we think about the world. Many of them started off specifically in the technology space, so how we may think about starting and running an agile project, which is a big thing in our space. We've got playbooks around design and design thinking and design methodologies, DevOps, right? So in the world, there's playbooks around that. We started to expand that to be non-technical playbooks as well. We've got a hard conversation playbook that was developed around the whole George Floyd and all the racial justice conversations, and saying, how do you have a hard conversation like this? How do you bring a company together, and how do we share that with other organizations that are really thinking about equity, really thinking about DEI and empathy as a whole? And so playbooks, you can check them out on our website on fearless.tech, and we've got a number of resources there that we just share how it is that we think about and how we do business.
Dr. D, random question. Who runs the Be More Healthy Twitter account?
I will never say. No, in all seriousness, it is a team effort. And so one of the tools I brought with me when I left Fearless, I went over to the health department, and our team uses Slack. And so oftentimes there's a lot of chatter amongst our channels to figure out what messaging goes out. And so it really is a team effort.
All right. We have a comment from someone. This is my third day dropping in, and everyone there seems so genuine and welcoming. Your culture speaks to yourself. Delali, how hard is it to build a company culture like that?
It is more difficult than you think, but maybe not for the reason that you might imagine. When we're born, like we are ourselves when we're born, right? Over time, you start to learn what is acceptable, what's not. So I say everyone's born this purple cow, right? This thing that stands out, that's unique, that's remarkable. And over time, life teaches you to be a brown cow and blend in and fit in with everybody else. And it's hard. It's really hard to unlearn that. And it might be that people have bad or traumatic experiences at other companies, and they bring that baggage to the organization. Like, oh no, I can't say that. Last time I did that, I got in trouble where I was. And so being yourself is really hard. When we were getting going, often being the only minority in the room in general, and trying to figure out what's our voice and how do we play and what are the rules of engagement. How does this work within starting a tech company? And I think we really start to hit our stride and become a lot more successful is when we find that voice. Say, you know what, this is me. This is me. This is who we are. Everyone can come, take the mask off, just be yourself. And I think that is really the foundation of what makes Fearless special. Is it's a place where you can come and you can be you, and you don't have to be exhausted by the mask. And for many people, that's a learned trait. You got to figure out and understand and get better at, like, taking this mask off. But that's really what we embody.
A lot of entrepreneurs also attending the conference and in the space. What are some of the lessons learned?
Yeah, I'll go first. I know you got some lessons as well. So I talked about a little earlier on the main stage that you start with your why, and so that's the big piece. And the second thing that I'll say is you've got to be persistent, right? Many people assume that, all right, I got an idea, I'm gonna be a millionaire tomorrow now once I start my business, and it doesn't work like that. In many cases, you're gonna work a heck of a lot harder than you did at your 9 to 5. As you're getting this thing off the ground, which is why your why has to be so deep and so committed. I say the next thing is you've got to live and drive by your values, right? What is it that you value, and who are you as a company, and who are you or as an organization? If you get that ethos right, it doesn't matter the widget that you sell, right? That stuff will come, it will change in time, but be true to your values and be true to your why. And I think that, again, it's not, do you have the best widget? And yes, you got to have, competitive thing, and you've got to make sure there's market fit, and you have a niche. All of those things are true, but do not do that absence of the values and the core of the business. Start with that, and everything else you layer on top of it.
Dr. D, your husband is such a visionary and building a lot of great things. How do you help him remember family and balance family and all of that? What is that conversation like?
Uh-oh.
That's a good question. So lots of calls, like right around like 6:15 to make sure that we're home by 6:30 for dinner. We talked about this a little bit on the main stage. I think it is giving each other space and grace, right? And so when I was in residency, I worked insane hours, right? And so there needed to be some flexibility around that. And certainly when Fearless was starting off, there were, insane hours. And, again, that seemingly has continued. But
My bad.
but then, so I think there's trying to have that flexibility and that grace, and again, being intentional about the time together.
Thank you. Delali, I'll go back to you. Fearless is growing and scaling. You went from, about 30 employees to 168. How large is the company going to grow to? What's your goal? What's your vision?
Yeah. So when we think about the vision, we've got a 5-year strategic plan that ends 2024. And so when we moved in downtown Baltimore, we were about 15 people. We now are responsible for about 250 or 260 full-time jobs. By the end of 2024, we'll be about 600 people. Half of that we will do with internal Fearless staff, and the other half, our goal is to grow other vendors in other ecosystems. So supporting other small businesses as they get going and building out this broader ecosystem within Baltimore City. but about 600 folks by the end of 2024. We seem to be on target. It's going to be hard. There will be lots of growing pains in the process. But again, for us, it isn't growth for the sake of growth. It is impact that we want to make, and how do we continue to spread that impact, not just in this city, but other cities across the country.
All right. Have a comment in the chat. Hey, Mr. and Dr. D. This is Chudy from Brothers. Is Fearless looking to hire instructional designers, learning experience designers? I am currently a doctoral student at the University of Baltimore.
Yeah, great question. The first stop I'll tell you to make is hit our website, so fearless.tech on the careers page. I think there may be 30 to 40 openings there right now. So I don't know off the top of my head all the ones that are currently open, but we have new ones opening all the time. But part of where I think we're going in the future is very heavily around becoming a learning and training organization, at least for part of the company. That is both internally and externally. And so some of those pieces we're still thinking through. And so if there isn't, I encourage everyone, if there isn't the perfect job description for you, there is a job that says pitch your own job. And so go there, be creative, pitch something. Who knows, right? We've had people that have done that within Fearless. And so pitch what you think you could bring to the table. And certainly our folks will take a look.
All right. There's a pitch competition as part of the conference. So what's Hutch?
So Hutch is our incubator. And it's much more than that, right? Many people think of an incubator as potentially just physical space, and that we have some space for our companies. Hutch is more aligned with traditionally you would think of as a startup studio. And so it is a program where we sit side by side and walk with founders over the course of an intensive 2-year program. They don't have the option to not participate in the entire 2 years, and so it's something that they agree to do. They agree to commit to the entire 2-year process. And we meet once a month for a full-day session, and these are really the building blocks to help them grow and scale their businesses. And so people come in very, very early stage. We usually see between a 6 to 7x growth in these companies as they join Hutch throughout their maturation process. And so we've had the first cohort graduate in 2020, and so we've got the next group about to graduate now, but we always run 2 concurrently. We currently are doing intake for the next class of Hutch that will start in January, but our goal is to grow at least 25 new companies, and we're about 13 to 14 in before 2025.
During the live stage, Delilah, you spoke about Boost. That's not really tech. Why was doing something like Boost important?
Yeah. So tech is Boost is an initiative run by the Downtown Partnership. We felt it very important to participate and to help underwrite that program for a couple of reasons. Number one, when we moved into Baltimore City, we were the recipients of a grant called the Tech Connect Grant. And that was a grant that came from the Downtown Partnership. So part of the reason we even got into the city was because we got a check to come in, and that helped fuel some of the growth that we've had as a company. And so hats off, and we were so honored to be a recipient of that grant. And so for them to have a program that's supporting other Black-owned businesses, we felt it very much so our responsibility to help underwrite that program as well. And it's really that coming full circle. And we work downtown, we live downtown, and so to be able to support our community in that way and to provide capital to businesses that often don't have access was really important to us, and something that we felt like fit our ethos and something we had to be involved in.
Thank you. Delilah, we have one of the folks here saying, pitch your position. That's very interesting. They haven't heard of that before. What is a good approach to take when pitching your position?
Stand out. Be a purple cow, right? And the best purple cow is being yourself. So something, obviously a lot of resumes come in, but make something stand out, right? So what gets something from the no pile to like, oh, look at this. This is so creative. This is so interesting. You've got a good sense of who we are as people, our ethos, our values as a company. Bake that in, right? Bake that in, your values. Look at our values and where they align, and tell a good story around that. It's not just the resume, right? The resume obviously is an important part in your skill set, but it's really the ethos and do those things align as to with where we're going.
Dr. D, you talked about the importance of pouring into others and giving back. How do you all do that personally?
Great question. So I definitely have students, a couple that come to mind that have asked me to be their mentor, and I say yes, right? Despite being, busy, that's something that I love, right? Like I love being able to provide access because I remember my days as a student, trying to figure out what to do and wanting someone to talk to about it and not quite knowing who to talk to about it. So I do have some students, some medical students, graduate students that I mentor as a, just on the side. I think, we're also supportive of the Baltimore Community Foundation. So we are donors to the Baltimore Community Foundation and really look for initiatives that, again, are, I think, reflective of how do we pour into the community. So that's certainly one way that we give back as well. My son has recently transferred to a new school, so trying to get much more engaged in his school and in that school community is a part of giving back for me as well.
Thank you. And Dr. D, you went to medical school at an HBCU, so let's talk about the importance of, investing in our HBCUs and developing talent there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee, an HBCU, and I loved my time there. I think you hit the nail on the head, right? I think my experience there uniquely prepared me for subsequent roles and certainly for this role. I also think that was a place where the professors, the staff, everyone poured into you, right? Like everyone wanted to see you succeed. Where I think a lot of folks' medical school story is really around the competitive nature of medical school, and certainly we were pushed, but I think that there was this camaraderie that came from going to an HBCU that was so unique, and again I think really helped to propel me.
Okay. Questions now about the pandemic. Delali, I'll start with you. Will Fearless do remote hiring? What's the remote stance?
Yeah, so right now we have an optional stance in where people are able to come into the office, but they're not required to come to the office. I think Delta in general has kind of thrown off a bunch of plans, but we're still having that internal conversation. We are not a remote first company, as in we're hiring all over the country. Right now we're not everyone being in the office, and so we haven't come up and finalized that plan yet. But there'll probably be something in the middle that's still being kind of fleshed out and finalized. But we still encourage people to apply to them as we think about a future potential campus approach, which might have Fearless in multiple cities. You never know those will be. So we see enough density of people in a particular area that might encourage us to potentially open up an office in that facility. So we do encourage people to apply from all over.
Dr. D, with the pandemic, you have a data dashboard. Who's running that, and how does that help you do your day-to-day job?
Yeah. So it was originally launched in partnership between the health department and the mayor's office of performance and innovation. It's subsequently run directly out of the health department. So I have an amazing team of epidemiologists, data analysts, our internal IT team. So we are actually running that internally off of data sets that we have.
And people are tired. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? What would you tell folks who want to get back to hanging with their friends and all of those things?
Yeah, I would say that there is a light. I would remind people to get vaccinated if you're eligible and don't have any contraindications. So definitely, vaccination is pretty critical in terms of moving forward. I would say if there are mask mandates in your particular area to abide by those mask mandates. Really, I think we all have kind of this personal responsibility. What can we do to help stop the spread? And vaccines is definitely one of the surefire ways to help. Certainly, if you're experiencing symptoms or if you think you've been exposed, getting tested and isolating, right? Not continuing to go about your normal life, but just really navigating things as safely as possible, right? Like the advice from the beginning of the pandemic has not changed. You should still be washing your hands regularly. You should still be social distancing, even if you're fully vaccinated. And if you're not fully vaccinated, you should get fully vaccinated.
Thank you. All right, Delali, switching back, we have a lot of newbies in the software development space. What should they do to improve upon their skills?
Yeah. there's the one lane that says, traditional formal, either 2-year, 4-year education, and that lens is still there. There's a number of ways to learn online. So there's a bunch of self-taught people, right? Courses online. In fact, one of our amazing Hutch companies, Aaron Brooks runs a company called Mastermind, and they do all sorts of technical training online with the pay what you want model, right? And so there's plenty of places to get plugged in online to build up your capability, to build up resources. Some companies are looking at, what prior experience do you have? And if you don't have a job in that space, how do you even get started? It's a chicken and egg. We've seen people to be successful. We're working on your pet projects, but posting them out on GitHub or someplace where someone can see your code repository, see how you work, and use that as a body of work. Go work on a community project. Volunteer at the health department, right? So there's projects that you can work on in your own time to show people that you've got the skills and got the chops that can be leveraged as experience. I'm hopeful that more organizations will start to bring on, entry level, junior level talent, apprenticeship level talent. So when you have that kind of paid opportunity, even better. But where you don't, find ways where you can show and demonstrate your experience. And again, you can learn online. There's plenty of free resources online to be able to learn.
Thank you so much, Delali, for the shout out to Hutch graduate Aaron Brooks, who actually spoke at the conference yesterday and is running Mastermind to help people get their start in tech. So thank you again for that shout out. But next question, let's talk about, let me make sure that I don't have any questions here. All right. Delali, tech isn't that diverse, right? So we were sitting in the booth and people were like, this can't be real. You can't have this diverse talent, people being this happy. How intentional is that?
Yeah, so our diversity is very intentional, but it didn't always start that way, right? So the assumption was, and I think I had the assumption like, oh, I'm a black guy, this will be easy. We'll just hire a bunch of black people. That'll work. Yeah, but it doesn't, right? Anything you do takes intention along the way. And so at Fearless, early on, we developed what we called our 50-50 goal. And that was that by 2025, 50% of our workforce will be women, and 50% will be BIPOC and minority based workforce, which is completely unheard of in the tech space. And so we wanted something kind of big, audacious out there, but really highlight that the talent is there, right? And being able to cultivate that talent, being able to ensure that talent has a safe space to be able to grow and to flourish and to be poured in, we thought was really important. Now there are pipeline issues, right? I'm not suggesting that there aren't real pipeline issues, right? If you've got schools in predominantly African American and Black communities that don't have internet, or homes that don't have internet or don't have a laptop, right? That is a huge disadvantage compared to someone's counterpart that does, right? As far as learning, being exposed to technology. So there are pipeline issues that need to be addressed, and so we're leaning in. Many organizations are leaning in to help to address some of those disparities. But I'll say yes, it's very, very intentional on our part, and something that we track literally monthly as we're hiring, as we track towards those goals.
Okay, so we've got to end on a few fun questions. So again, the conference theme is tech meets culture. And I know that versus has been like this thing of the pandemic, right? So if you had your pick of two people to go up against one another or to amplify each other, the verses, who would it be? Dr. D.
Oh, first thought, Meg Thee Stallion and Cardi B.
Surprise! That surprised me. Okay. Delali.
Oh, that's an interesting question. There's so many good ones already. I'm a big Rest of Soul DMX fan, so I would have put DMX again versus. I like rowdy people, like an Eminem. That would have probably been a fun one. That'd have been an interesting one.
Did you miss the one with DMX and Snoop?
It was good. It was good. But Snoop was fun. But I like rowdy, really rowdy people. So or mystical versus anybody would have been pretty amazing as well.
I heard you say Kanye and Pharrell.
Kanye Pharrell would be a good producer, not artist. Producer one.
But they've kind of changed the versus rules a little bit anyway. If you produce something, all right. If your life had a theme song, what would it be? Or a soundtrack? What are some of the songs that would be on that soundtrack?
Jeez.
That's a tough one. What songs would be on the soundtrack?
Name a couple songs would be on the soundtrack. Tech meets culture. Yeah, give us a little bit of the color.
All right. I'm a big Jill Scott fan. So I think A Long Walk would definitely have to be on there.
I thought you were going to say Living My Life Like It's Golden.
Oh, that's a good one too. There you go.
That's fine then. You have to pick a new one.
Who else? I was in a Sade mood this morning. So Kiss of Life.
What's mine?
What else? I like a lot of Afro beats. Lots of Afro beats will be on there. There's a song actually, and I don't know who the original artist is. The original artist is an Afrobeats artist, but Michelle Williams of Destiny's Child remade this song called "Say Yes," and it was on one of her gospel albums, and that song has been in heavy rotation for me. So those stand out right now.
All right, Delali, same question.
I don't know. I usually ask her, like, what songs do I like again? I'm trying to think of the words of something.
Beyonce.
Yeah, anything
if you're
Beyonce.
watching, Beyonce.
What songs would be on my list? Gosh,
You listen to music all the time.
I do. I'm trying to think of
This
like
is surprising to me.
So I'm more of whatever I'm in the mood for. I'm trying to think of like one. If I had to pick a song, what do I
She
listen
said
to?
songs in your
Songs would
soundtrack.
be- I'll pick
Yeah.
themes or genres, right?
Yeah.
So I like the inspirational, like happy stuff. I like rap, hip hop. So I mean stuff like in that lens. I do like a lot of the Pharrell kind of things, that kind of vibe. Who else? Who else got it? Outkast.
one of the
Outkast would be in there.
One of the folks said, say Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
All right. Now, this shouldn't be a tricky question, but I have to ask. What's your favorite streetwear brand?
Fearless Sports.
Fearless
Hands
Sports.
down. You better say the same thing. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Very, very, very good. Thank you both so much. I know you're both very, very, very busy. I'm pretty sure our audience appreciates you. I appreciate you for spending time. Again, thanks to everyone for joining us with the Fireside Chat, then the Q&A with Delali and Dr. D. We ask that you do come back later. We'll have our recruiters doing live Q&A. So all of you who have questions about positions with Fearless, how to pitch your position or skills we're looking for, please join us as our recruiters come back on. So thank you very much. You all have a great rest of your day.